Why, hello class. Hope you're having a good start to the day. I'm just going to start us off with some prayer. God, thank you for today. Thank you for your love for us that endures forever. Thank you that we can rest secure in your love for us. Help us to continue to grow in our knowledge and love of you. In Jesus' name, amen. Good to see you, class. I'm excited to teach you today. We are going to be covering time. And the good news is we have been addressing time periodically throughout the year as a warm-up for math. So hopefully today will serve as more of a review. Before I move on, I'm going to quickly go through our lesson plans for today, Wednesday, and tomorrow, Thursday. So remember to work on your subtraction timesheet. This is going to be a little harder than addition. So if you feel like you want more practice, those worksheets or timesheets are available on ClassReach, and you can download those anytime and keep practicing. Remember, you just want to keep trying to get better, okay? And that takes practice. And so sometimes, even in our house, we have to do timesheets because it does help us to continue to grow in our mastery. We'll talk through the math lesson today. Remember, for science, for weathering and erosion, I have sent another video for you to watch, and you can watch that either Wednesday or Thursday. But just remember, at the end of this month, we're going to send a summary. You're going to send a summary of 5 sentences of what you've learned during this time of videos and extra reading regarding rocks. And so it's always helpful to maybe write your summary sentence one at a time and then send it all in together so that you're not sitting there trying to remember everything. Again, first language lessons, you're just going to do your lessons at home. No need to turn those in. Your N7 new words, you're going to be writing in cursive, and then you're also going to have a parent dictate 2 to 3 sentences for you with the spelling words in them, and then you're going to create your own sentences using those spelling words. Continue to read Secret Garden 14 and 15, and remember to read on your own. It's an important time right now to really make sure that we are growing in what we're reading on our own so that we are all set for 4th grade. And Latin, we're finishing up chapter 28. Next week, we're starting chapter 29. Okay, so let's transition to talking about time. So we have units in time, and today we're going to address 2 of those units, which are hours and minutes. The abbreviation for hours is going to be H, and the abbreviation for minutes will be MIN for minutes, okay? Does anybody know how many minutes are in an hour? 60. Can I give you a little bit of a clue or a hint right now? All of those 6 facts for multiplication and division, this would be an awesome time to review some of those extra math facts. If mom or dad are busy with another person, try writing out all of your 6 facts. It's going to help you for the following week, okay? So that's a little hint from Mrs. Hobart. All right, this should look familiar. This is our handy dandy clock we have been using throughout the year. Now, let me tell you just a couple things as a reminder about this clock, okay? We have the long hand, which is the minute hand, and the short hand, which is going to be the hour hand. If this is called an analog clock, if you have one at home, practice reading time on this. I know it's easier to read a digital clock. I know it's easier to look on mom or dad's phone, but we want to continue to grow in this skill because sometimes you don't have those digital clocks. All right, so remember, as we move the hour hand along, the minute hand is moving around the clock. So as that hour hand, and I'm going to go a little bit closer, as that hour hand continues to move hour by hour, we have the minute hand making a trip a full way around the clock. Okay? So these numbers, they're red on my clock, they're the big numbers, they mark the hours. And then these little, I'm going to hold it even closer, these little dots represent minutes, okay? So one small little dot equals 1 minute. Now, when we go through these numbers, if we're the blue hand, let's count how many spaces are in between. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are exactly 5 minutes as that minute hand moves from one big number to the next, okay? Let's practice counting by 5s up to 60. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, okay? Now, I'm going to show you some examples of some time. Here we go. First one. All right, it's going to be a surprise. What time is this? This time we can figure out by looking at the hour hand first. Now, I know you're going to look at this and say, it's not exactly on the 1. But you know what? It's pretty close. It's just past the 1. So we say that this is 1, and now we have the minute hand at the 7. Remember, when we count minutes, we count by 5s on these big numbers. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. It is 1:35. Let's try this time. What time is this? You see it right there, it's 9. And then let's look at our minute hand. How many minutes? Remember, each of these big numbers is worth 5. So we're going to start from the 12, and then this would be 5, 10. So the time is 9:10. Let me show you another time. Okay, whoops. I want to go back one more. There we go. What time is this? We are going to call this time, it looks like it's close to the 8, but it's not quite on the 8. Therefore, it's 7. But let's figure out how many minutes. Again, starting at the 1, we're going to count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. This time is 7:45. There are a lot of different ways that we can say 7:45. We just got done with fractions, and I mentioned this before, but if you look at this as a pie, just like our fractions, we also know if we divided that in half and then in half again, we have 4 parts, and it is 1/4 of the way to the next hour. 1/4 is the same as a quarter, so we can say it is 7:45. Do you get that? Do you see? If I were to divide it in half, then half again, then this would be equal to 1/4 or 1/4, and we could say it is 1/4 to 8 o'clock. Okay? Now, bear with me on this one. What time is this? 10. And then let's figure out how many minutes. 5, 10, 15. It's 10:15. Any ideas of what we could call this time other than 10:15? Remembering that we can divide this up just like we do with our fractions. Right, we could say it's 10:15. All right, because the minute hand went 1/4 of the way from the 12 to the 3. Okay, now one more time, I'm going to show you. This is what time? 11:30. Okay, 11, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. We can say that it is also 11:30. Again, if we were to just divide this in half, you can see it is right at the half mark. I have another question about numbers. We talked about there being 60 minutes in an hour, but does anybody know how many hours are there in a day? 24. There are 24 hours in a day. Let me show you something. This, it almost looks like you can't see the hour hand because it's covered up by the minute hand. But this is showing you 12 o'clock, all right? Now, 12 o'clock, you may have heard these terms, and I'm going to unpack them for you. One term is midnight, okay? So some of you may have stayed up all the way to midnight before. Midnight is 12 o'clock a.m. For the most part, most of you are sleeping, okay? At least you should be, unless something is special, okay? It would be really hard to get a good night's rest if you're not sleeping at midnight. But this is when the whole day starts. So we start our a.m. or our morning hours at midnight, okay? Now, let's fast forward a little bit more and go around the clock one whole time with all of our hour hands. And we're going to be back at 12 again. But this time, it is 12 o'clock noon. And then that starts our PM. And so then we start talking about afternoon. So when you are at school, the way things have been this year is we would have reached 12 o'clock around recess time, okay? Actually, I think we were in Joyful Discovery then. I'm sorry. We're in Joyful Discovery at noon. You guys come back to the classroom at 12:30. That's how things had gone this year. So anyway, I wanted to introduce those two terms. So at noon, that's when the PM starts, and at midnight is when the AM or the morning hours start. Okay? Now, we are going to start telling time with things that maybe are not as easy to see at the initial glance. Let me get you here. Okay, sorry. All right, so we have this time here. Notice that it's in between some numbers. And yes, we can go and count those little marks. And we can do that. That's definitely okay when you have those little marks. But there may be an easier way to do it. Can I show you? So you know that it's the 2 o'clock hour. Let's go ahead and just get to the nearest big number without going over. So let's go 5, 10, 15. Now you can say, I know it's a little past 2:15. Can I give you one more clue? We sometimes just round. We just kind of say, oh, this is pretty close. It's a little after 2:15. That's how you'll probably hear people say it if you were to ask them the time, like on the street or in a store. But if you get to 2:15, then now you only need to count 1, 2, 3 marks, making it 2:18. So we usually estimate, and we could say it's about 2:20. So some people may say it's a little after 2:15, and some people would say it's about 2:20, okay? So remember to count by fives and then count by ones. So let me try another time, okay? What time is this? Well, it's not quite at the 3, so we know it's 2 o'clock. But now let's figure out how many minutes. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. Let's get to the nearest one without going over 50. And now we can count those little marks. 1, 2. It is 2:52. Now some people would estimate and say it's about 2:50, okay? So remember, when you have to find out little tick marks like this, you want to get to the closest big number for your minute. Closest big number for your minutes, and then start counting the little tick marks. Now, we did not go over the textbook quite yet, but let's go ahead and get there. So open your textbooks and turn to page 79. All right, let's go through this quickly. You can see 2A. What time is it? Take a look at the hour hand and the minute hand, and you will see it is 2:05. How about B? Look at the hour hand and the minute hand. 4:15, or we could say a quarter after. Let's take a look at this one. Hour hand is on the 12. Minute hand is on the 4. 5, 10, 15, 20. It is 12:20. Now, let's take a look at this one. That's right, it's 7:30 or half past 7. And then let's take a look at this one. Remember, we want to count by fives, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So we have 340, right? You also know that 8 times 5 is 40, so you don't have to go through the whole clock like I have been doing. You can just know that 5 minutes times 8 is going to be 40 minutes. And then let's take a look at this one. It's not quite at the 8, so we say it's 7:45 or 7:45. Okay, so let me just quickly share what you're going to do for a workbook exercise for this lesson. This one, you're going to be matching the times with the clocks. And then with this one, you're going to write the time that is shown with numbers, and then you're going to write with words, okay? I believe the answer key that I posted has a different range of words. So if you don't get the words exactly right, that's okay, but I want to encourage you to start thinking like this, 7:30, just because that's the language that we use often, okay? Now, I'm going to transition, and I want you to get your textbook again, because we're moving from telling time in hours and minutes to talking about something called elapsed time, and that means the amount of time that is covered. So if you look, we did 79, and I don't know why they do this before 79, but that's okay. Page 78, we have David running, and it shows on the clock that it is 20 past 8 or 8:20. David started running at 8:20 a.m. and he ran 3 kilometers, and he finished at 8:35 a.m. How long did it take him to run 3 kilometers? That's what he's asking. And they tell you it took 15 minutes to run 3 kilometers. How did they figure that out? Let's take a look at the picture. So here we have 20 minutes past 8. And so now we know that we have to move that minute hand all the way to the 35, moving it from the 4 to the 7, which would be, 8:35. We would count the distance that the minute hand traveled. 5, 10, 15. It would have traveled 15 minutes. Okay, let's talk about this just a little bit more. Turn to page 80 with me, and we're going to look at number 3 and number 4. We already talked about this, right? What AM and PM means. So we're just going to go to number 3 and 4. So what time is 26 minutes after 9:30 a.m.? Well, they start the clock at 9:30, and then they moved that minute hand 26 minutes. So they moved it 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and then one more minute there to give us 26 minutes later. So what time is being shown? That's right, 9:56. Okay, let's try this one. How many minutes are there in 1 hour? Okay, here they show you it's 4 o'clock. Do you see that? This is number 4. 1 hour later, they just move that hour hand one more, and they give you 5 o'clock. But look here, it's 6:45 or 6:45, and when they move the hour hand, do you see how it bumps up and it's almost to the 8? Now we can say it is 7:45 or 7:45. Okay. I want to show you some more times on my clock. All right, here we go. It is 4:50 right here. Excuse me. Here's our time, 4:50. It looks almost like it's 5, but it's not quite on the 5. So we know it is 4:50. Now, I want to go to 5:15. Now, this may be a little bit more complicated because you're crossing over to a new hour. Did you hear me say that? I said 4:50 to 5:15. So what that means is you're going to cross the 12 with your minute hand. So let's go ahead and let's move it to 5:15, and we're going to count this, okay? So it started at 4:50. Here we go. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. We covered 25 minutes. Okay, let me show you another example. This may look like it's almost 11 because it is almost 11. So it is 10:50, okay? We want to move from 10:50 to 2:50. Oh, well that's interesting, right? Because the minutes are the same. So we have to calculate how many hours. Remember, we are needing to pass the 12. So here we go. Here's 10:50, 11:50, 12:50. Are you counting how many hours I've said? 1:50, 2:50. How many hours did we pass? 4 hours. Okay. How much time has passed between 11:15 and 3:15? The minutes have stayed the same, so we have to think of hours. So I'm going to go from 11 to 12. That gives me 1 hour. Now I have 12 to 1. That's 2 hours. 1 to 2, it's 3 hours. And then 2 to 3:15 would give me a full 4 hours, okay? But now, what am I going to do if instead of ending with something that has the same amount of minutes, I do something a little different? What if I wanted to start at 11:15 and go until 3:52? Well, now they made it a little bit more complicated, right? No fear. What we're going to do is we're still going to count the hours until 3:15. So 11:15 to 12:15, 12:15 to 1:15, 1:15 to 2:15, and 2:15 to 3:15. But we know we actually have more time, don't we? So the question is, how are we going to get from 3:15 to 3:52? We know that this was 4 hours, but now we know we have some more minutes to calculate. So let's think through. Let me get us to 3:15. Excuse me. Here we go. 3:15, and then we want to go until 3:52. So let's count. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 36, 37. So this would be 4 hours and 37 minutes. Okay, we had to count how many times we would pass one of those numbers and count by our 5s, okay? So, let's see. Let's do another time. Let's do 10:50. I'm going to show you that time right now. Here we go with 10:50. Almost looks like 11 because it is almost 11, but not quite. It's 10:50. And we're going to go to 2:14. Let me write this time over here. But we're going to say it's 10:50. Let me look at my notes here. PM. And we want to know how much time until 2. What time did I say? 14 a.m. I'm going to erase this. Okay. 10:50 a.m. until 10:50 p.m. till 2:14 a.m. So we have a switch happening there. We're going to be passing a 12, won't we? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's start at 10:50, which is where we are right now. This is 10:50 at night. And we're going to get to 1:50 a.m. because we're crossing that 12. So what is p.m. turns to a.m. So let's go ahead and move our clock until we get to 1:50, giving us 3 hours. 10:50, that's 1. Now 11:50 is 1. 12:50 is 2. 1:50 is 3. But we're not stopping at 1:50, are we? We're going to 2:14. So we had 1:50. I'm going to write down, we remembered that we went 3 hours to get to 1:50, but we need to stop at 2:14. So we want to go 5, 10, 15, 20. 5, 10, 15, 20 to get us at 2:10. And then we have to add 4 more minutes. All right. So that would be 3 hours and 24 minutes. You'll have to excuse me. Sometimes I abbreviate hours the way I was brought up in abbreviating hours, but they just want you to use an H here. Okay, let's go ahead and look at page 81 together. 5A, how many minutes are there from 1:15 p.m. to 1:45 p.m.? All right, here we go. They marked it for you. They showed you 1:15, and you want to go to 1:42. I'm going to give you a few minutes and see if you can do it. Okay, let's count. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 26, 27. Yeah, that's right. So there's 27 minutes. Look at B. How many hours between 3:18 p.m. until 8:18 p.m.? Here's 3:18. Did I say 3:18? Anyway, from 3:18 p.m. to 8:18 p.m. You see, the minute hands are the same, but it's the hours that have changed. So how many hours? 5 hours. All right. And then let's go ahead and look at C. How long is it from 9:15 until 11:30? Now remember, we want to get to the 2 hours. So we're going to start at 9:15, and we want to think through 10:15, 11:15, and then we have to add 15 more minutes. So it'd be 2 hours and 15 minutes. Well, now you get to practice this on your own. And so in your workbook, you're going to be doing exercise 37. This one, you're going to write the time that has elapsed by writing how many minutes later and then writing the times in the spots. As you turn the page, you're going to be also doing more times by writing the times and how many hours and minutes later. Now, I wanted to make a note on C and D. Just so you're aware, you're going to be passing from AM to PM, okay? So just keep that in mind. Same here. So it means you're going to cross over that 12, right? When you switch from AM to PM, you cross over the 12. Anyway, keep practicing. Even if this feels a little rusty, that's okay because we don't see a lot of clocks like this. I would encourage you to practice to make sure that even outside of the workbook, when you're eating dinner or getting ready for bed or waking up in the morning or eating your breakfast or eating lunch, that you have these conversations with your mom or your dad or your siblings, or maybe even if you're doing a Zoom phone call, that you're looking at clocks that look like this and learning to tell time, and then doing the extra work of saying how much time has passed from breakfast to lunch. And we can incorporate some of these even in our lives. All right, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day, students. Miss you all.